going on, F1 fans? Welcome back to HTA. Check this out. We've got Silverstone coming up now. The British Grand Prix is this weekend. We're really excited. We get to see some racing again. Let's see what the let's see what the Brits have to say about their event over there in Silverstone. Anyways, really cool show we got today. We've got the whole pit crew there giving us predictions. Plus, all the big dogs brought out the upgrades for Silverstone. So really excited to see that. Make sure you keep it locked. All that and more hitting the apex coming at you right now. Let's go. Yes, Manny is still hiding, Fernando. Welcome back to Hitting the Apex. What's going on, everybody? Here, joined by the pit crew. Always first, Moni Leuro, joined by Mr. Vish and Nick. Manny on the ones and twos in the background. As soon as we mention Mercedes, he will pop his head in, as usual. And nevertheless, it's race week, ladies and gentlemen. So finally, we've got some racing again after a long week. By the way, I woke up on Saturday. I woke up on Sunday, and I'm like, wait, there's no qualifying. Wait, there's no race. What do I do in my life? I'm just kidding. I didn't do that, but I did miss some racing, though.
A little worried there for a second, Jess.
Yeah, I know. I would be worried as well. So, but yeah, hey, it's the British Grand Prix, ladies and gentlemen, at Silverstone. We welcome back the pit crew. Really exciting. This is kind of like a staple in Formula One, right? Silverstone, the British Grand Prix. Are you guys excited about this? We'll kind of go around the horn a little bit here on your thoughts on the British Grand Prix. We'll start off with you, Vish.
Yeah, I mean, it's historic. I'm not that big of a fan of the track, to be honest. It's not a lot of overtaking unless, Hamilton and Max run into each other like last year. It's dramatic. And then after that, you just kind of sit there. I mean, it's not a great track for overtaking. The one thing, and you see some of that in the forecast, is they do tend to get changeable weather conditions, so that can mix it up. So hopefully we'll get some of that to get a little bit more drama. But this does tend to be one of those. I mean, it's not Monaco or anything, but one of the more processional races. So I guess this will also be a test of the new cars and how close they can follow. Because there are some overtaking opportunities, but in the past, by the time you get to them, there's, you're falling back so far by going through the twisty parts. So maybe if they can follow closer, we'll see some overtaking. But usually this is not the most entertaining race. I mean, a couple of years ago, everyone's tire exploded on the last lap, and that was the entertaining part. So it's usually like side stuff that causes the entertainment.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's the track. But before we get to that, I got to do this professionally, guys. No slip-ups here. We got to give a shout-out to our sponsor before we get to Moni and Vish, of course. U-Brake will fix, repairs damaged wheels from curb rash, cracks, or bends, all under one roof with house coat powder coating, CNC machining, and polishing. They also offer new custom wheels and tires from your favorite brands such as Vossen, Forgiato, Fuel Off-Road, and more. They now even offer no credit check financing for up to $5,000 for a new set of wheels. Fast turnaround times on all repairs, and they even provide loaner wheels in many cases. U-Brake will fix is your total automotive wheel solution located in North Miami, right off of Biscayne Boulevard and Northeast 146th Street. Check out some of their great work across all social media, from Instagram to Facebook, at U-Brake will fix. That's the letter U, Brake Wheel Fix, just like how it says there on the screen. U-Brake will fix, or ubrakewillfix.com. You can even give them a call. 305-748-0112. It's really small on the screen, but if anything, 305-748-0112. Schedule your appointment today. U-Brake will fix, changing the way you see wheels. So getting back to it, Silverstone, the British Grand Prix. I know there's a lot of talk about Britain wanting Silverstone to be a little bit more like Miami, also, which is kind of interesting. Moni, what's your take on the British Grand Prix?
Yeah. So as Vish said, it's a classic. It's, I guess, one of the classics that you kind of just look forward to during the season. Uh, Not my favorite track either, but it's just like the magic of the British Grand Prix. Um, Really excited to see what's going to happen with Mercedes in England, but I'll get into that a little bit more later.
Cool. Nick.
Yeah, I mean, with Silverstone, it's always just an historic track, lots of history, lots of great drivers coming out of Britain. I believe we have three or three on the grid for this race, with, of course, Lewis Hamilton, George Russell, and Lando Norris. So that's always exciting for the fans to see their hometown drivers and really get a chance to root for every single one. And they all have a chance to do really well in this race, which is also, a good thing for the British fans. But yeah, I honestly, I am looking forward to seeing what upgrades all the top three teams bring. I really want to see if anyone has been able to separate themselves from the pack, or if it's just going to be kind of more of the same. It's just going to be like the top two with Red Bull and Ferrari, and then Mercedes kind of straggling behind still.
Well, we'll definitely get into that because I think we're going to talk about it. I mean, pretty much right now, right? So let's talk a little bit about the circuit, Manny. My bad. You can definitely post that up now. But listen, here's the circuit. It's as Vish and everybody else kind of alluded to it. Not a lot of overtaking in this one. You've got what's that? Two DRS zones, speed trap right after turn 15 as well. So I think the DRS detection zone, the first one, is kind of interesting because it comes right off of turn 3, and you still got to make some there's still some corners there. So
yeah, and that's kind of what I alluded to earlier.
Right.
That's historically been the problem. You're within a second going into turn 3, but you can't follow, and by the time you come out of turn 5 to get the DRS, you're way back, and it's too short to actually overtake. If there is overtaking, it's generally between 14, 15. If you can get a good exit off of turn 14, it's kind of barely a turn. You can kind of carry it through there. But yeah, that detection zone right before turn 3. And the reason they put it there, though, is because, again, previously it was so hard to follow that if you tried to put it between 4 and 5, it's by then you've dropped back too far. So at least it was a chance to at least be within a second.
So the first Grand Prix here, 1950, number of laps, 52 laps. This is a little bit of a longer circuit, right? 5.8 kilometers. The lap record, minute 27 by Max 2 years ago. So I think that what this tells me is that this is how can I put it? This is a race. This is a circuit that's really going to benefit some of the teams with a little bit of a higher downforce. Am I saying? Does that make sense to any of you? Vish? Yes, you can say yes, right? Yeah. Right? Higher downforce. And who's that? Who has higher downforce? Ferrari, right? Ferrari's got a little bit higher downforce.
It should favor Ferrari.
It should favor Ferrari. So that again, who the hell knows, right? With all the madness that's going on with them. But I think that this is going to be an interesting track in the sense that this is an opportunity for Ferrari to get back into it. If they do everything right, if they perform the way that they should be performing, obviously the upgrades are going to play a little bit of a role into what happens also. Red Bull, Ferrari, and Mercedes are all bringing upgrades to this one. So we'll definitely get into that in just a moment here. Let's talk a little bit about the timing of the sessions. So these practice one, FP1, starts at 8 in the morning. Not too bad. 11 o'clock. It's very standard kind of in Europe when it comes to that area in Europe, right? So you'll get the same, more or less the same thing where FP1 is at 8, practice is at FP2 is at 11, and then FP3 is at 7 in the morning with the qualifying at 10 a.m. That's the only difference, really, right? Qualifying is usually a little bit later. We're seeing it here at 10 a.m. But I think in Europe, all around in that general location of Europe, you're going to see an earlier qualifying anyways. And then the race is at 10 a.m., which is kind of nice instead of like 7 or 8 in the morning. So on July 3rd.
It's in the summer, it stays bright very late in Northern Europe like this. So they can start the race later. So it's nice.
Well, that's good. A 10 a.m. start for us. Well, that's for us. Obviously, it's what it'll be. It's like a 6-hour time difference, so it starts around 4 p.m. In Silverstone.
Yeah,
something like that. Anyway, who cares? It doesn't really matter.
6 hours.
It's 10 a.m. our time. That's all that matters. So let's talk a little bit about the forecast here.
It's now, 3 p.m. by the way.
3 p.m. There we go. 5-hour difference. Looks like some rain. Again, here's the thing, though, Vish, Nick, Moni. I mean, we're gonna get rain. We're gonna get rain in qualifying and in practice and in qualifying. Then it looks like Sunday it's gonna be dry. It's gonna be nice. It's gonna be dry. 10% chance of rain. This is kind of setting up again for, hopefully the rain holds up during practice because then they can use the which, by the way, I didn't even see what tires are gonna bring to this one. I don't see it here, but anyway, we'll go over that now, right? They if it rains, then they're going to have to use the intermediates or the wets. So again, how does that factor into what they do in qualifying, what they do during the race? Because now you're not able to use the other, your soft tires or your medium tires. You're not able to really practice and get it going with that and kind of get an idea as to how the car is going to perform. These new cars are going to perform on the track, on the circuit this time around. So C1 to C3 are the tires, looks like, and typically for the last couple of races it's been C3 to C5 if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, I think again the exploding tires a couple of years ago, I think they're just not taking any chances and going with the harder compounds.
I was going to say, so they'll use the harder compounds on this one. So if you had to guess, Vish, and we'll go around the horn on this one, if you had to guess, with rain possibly being a factor, how does that kind of play into, number one, tire degradation, of course, but number two, how they kind of strategize? Is this a one-stopper? Is this a two-stopper? What do you think?
I think they'll probably go for the one-stop because these tires, you can do like a medium hard race, and that is as enduring a tire as you get. So even with Silverstone being abrasive, it's probably going to be okay to do that. With that said, if it rains, it's not like it's exactly what you said. It's similar to Canada. It's supposed to rain during qualifying, get to the race dry. So if that can wash away a lot of the grip, because normally what happens if there's no rain over the weekend, you lay down rubber during all the practices during qualifying. By the race, it's easier to get the tires up to temperature, easier to get them to get grip.
Track Evolution is there, right? It's there.
Yeah. So if it washes away, then you end up, maybe degrading your tires a little more quickly. The other thing is they've only used these tires a couple of times. This is actually the halfway point of the season. And we're kind of forgetting now, these are still new tires this year. The tires are bigger. They're a different compound, just totally from previous years. So, they don't have a lot of experience with this range. The soft this week has been the hard most weeks.
Right.
So they're going to also there's going to be some guessing, and it's going to be one of those situations where they might come in thinking it's a one stop and then end up converting to a two stop if the tires go off quicker than they expect.
Nick, tire. So just going back to the tires, right? Again, Fish mentioned it. The C3 has been the hard tire for what, 4 or 5 races in a row now. So now you're switching where that's the soft tire, and you go to C1 is a hard tire. Chances are you're going to go C1 and C2. Depending on how the weather is, just because of the track evolution. Number one, if there's no rubber laid out because of the rain, then you're really going to have to test things out during the race? How does that affect some of the oh, we lost Moni there, but how does that affect some of the teams with regard to how many stops they're going to take, and who do you think has the advantage there then?
I mean, I feel like what it's really going to come down to, other than, the tires, is also reliability. Both Ferrari and Red Bull have had reliability issues this season. So I'm looking to see whether, which team will have more issues. I feel like that's going to be a big thing. Of course, the weather, it's Britain. It's going to rain, especially in the summer. The weather is still can be a little bit unpredictable, which makes the race exciting. But I also feel like having these tires and maybe not being able to practice on them as much, and maybe that track isn't as rubbered down as like Vish was saying. I think probably, if the weather impacts the weekend and on race day the track isn't as laid out for the drivers, I think probably you'll see more of the medium hard tires and have them focus more on reliability rather than going for softs.
Well, speaking of reliability, I think that is the biggest question mark right now. Is we've seen issues recently, and we'll get back to some other stuff. But we've seen issues recently with reliability on both the Red Bull and the Ferrari. Nick mentions a good point, and Moni, I'll go to you on this because it's a good point. Tires, tire deg, and reliability are two things that are really going to play a big factor, I think, in this race. We've seen, like I just mentioned, we've seen some issues with Red Bull recently. Now with Checo last week, or 2 weeks ago, excuse me. We've seen some issues before that with the Reds, with Ferrari. So, is this an opportunity for strategy to really come into play when it comes to the circuit and both of these teams, along with Mercedes? Because Mercedes, did look half decent a couple weeks ago, but primarily Red Bull and Ferrari. How does this play into their strategies, and who has the upper hand there, you think?
Absolutely. I think it's definitely going to play a huge part in both of their strategies for their weekend at Silverstone. In my opinion, I think Red Bull has a little bit of the upper hand, but that's just trying to remain optimistic about how our weekend might go. But I definitely think it's going to be very interesting to see those top three, Mercedes, Ferrari, and Red Bull, kind of strive to really not have any reliability issues. And as you guys were talking about, I had to step up for a second because my signal was a little crappy. But as much as I gathered from before I left, tire degradation is also going to be really important in light of the weather forecast. But in my opinion, I think that Red Bull is going to have a little bit more of the upper hand in comparison to Ferrari.
Let's talk a little bit about the drivers that we have to watch, because we've seen it, right? We've already seen it, Vish. We've seen it, Nick, Moni. Some of these drivers do a lot better, first of all, in practicing and qualifying, but who cares? The point is in the weather, right? Rain. When it comes to rain, we've seen some of the older, the wily vets, Fernando Alonso's and Vettel's, really do well when it comes to the wets and the inters. Who are some of the drivers that we should definitely watch out for, just the whole entire weekend, and how do you guys feel about those guys? We'll start off with you, Nick, on this one.
Well, I mean, I would probably say, as far as if the weather impacts the race, then I would probably say Alonso and Vettel could have a shot at making some noise in perhaps the top 5, because they're fairly well, they do fairly well on the wets and the inters, but I think also probably another driver to watch out for. Um, I would say Kevin Magnussen might be a driver to watch out for. Um, I know he's done well in qualifying the past two races, and he's been up in the top 10. Last race, I know he just had some bad luck with the front wing issue. But I really think that, I really think that he would be able to, score some points and perhaps even get into that top seven.
Yeah, Mags again. Had an opportunity, but kind of screwed it up later on. So, Moni, we'll go with you. Who are some of the drivers you're watching?
Personally, I'm going to be watching Lewis Hamilton, mostly because last year, he performed really well in Silverstone. He finished P1, and I'd like to see um, how he's going to perform this weekend, given that he had a solid uh, Canadian GP. So I want to see if he would be able to kind of bring over the momentum from Canada into England. And now that the grid might look a little bit differently with hopefully Leclerc back at the top and everything. I want to see if he can achieve something similar to what he achieved in Canada while in England.
Yeah, interesting. Vish, what's your take?
Yeah, so one of the interesting things with this track is earlier I talked about how it's kind of boring for racing because it's very technical, and frankly, it's easier to pass driving in a straight line. The good drivers love this track because it really tests them. It's a lot of direction changes. That's who I'm looking at, and outside the obvious of like Max and all that we know are kind of the best drivers. I'm interested to see how Ocon does here. We're talking a lot about how Alonso's a veteran. I still think Ocon's underrated as a driver. He got pushed out of Force India for financial reasons, and has bounced around a little bit. But at the end of that Canadian Grand Prix race, it didn't really come through that clear on the broadcast, but he was intentionally going slow to keep Alonso in his DRS so Alonso wouldn't get passed from behind. That's really difficult to do. He's a really good technical driver, so I'm looking to see where he finishes in relation to Alonso as well. He's been beating him on the year, and so I'm curious to see what he does here, because there is especially in qualifying, especially if it's wet, the driver can make a huge difference here because it is so technical. Now in the race, that hinders the racing because there's not a lot of good overtaking opportunities, but in qualifying, the driver can make a bigger difference here than on a lot of other tracks.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because, like you said, this is a very technical race, right? And while Fernando made a great point in the chat that Sainz does well in the rain. He does. However, I want to see him put it all together. I mean, he did well a couple weeks ago. Don't get me wrong, with a P2 finish. Looks like he's got some confidence, and he's got something going now where, he's, like I said, he's gained a little bit of confidence. He's racing with a little more oomph. You know what I mean? Like he looks like he's kind of locked in a little bit more than he was before.
Tenacity.
Yeah, he's definitely being a little more aggressive. He just looks better, right? He looks like he's a little more confident in the car. The only thing is I don't want him to get too overconfident now, especially if it's in the rain, and kind of make that mistake, and then poof, he's out. He's done, right? So I'm still going to watch Carlos Sainz. I think it's going to be interesting to see if he can continue the momentum that he built. A lot of people are going to say, well, hey, can Leclerc, now that he's back, there's no penalties, is he going to be able to, stay on top? I think that's everybody is watching that. But for me, it's him. I love that you mentioned Ocon. I still like Sebastian Vettel. I think that, he might have a little something to say if it does stay a little wet, because he's a solid driver when it's wet. But I just feel like this might be an opportunity for him to get some points for Aston Martin. Not necessarily, place in the top 5 or anything, but I think this could be a good drive for him. in Silverstone. If I'm not mistaken, he's had success before in the past, whether it was 20 years ago or not. But you know what? I mean, listen, some of these wily vets, the Alonsos and the Vettels and Lewis Hamilton and those guys, they know what it takes to win here in Silverstone. So I think that watching Vettel and Sainz are my two top guys to watch in this one. And then team wise, who are some of the teams? I'll start off with the team. I'm going to state the obvious. Can Ferrari get back into the constructors? I'm going to watch them. That's it. Simple as that. Vish.
Yeah, I'm going with McLaren. They were terrible in Canada. They've been trending backwards, kind of covertly. I would say, everyone's like, well, Ricardo's finally catching up to Norris. I think Norris kind of backslid into Ricardo. And, at the end of Canada, they're like, all right, we're going to our home GP. We got to do better. Well, now home GP, you got to do better. Like, this could be the point where they write the season off entirely if they stink it up again, because then you got to start worrying about next year's car. So that's what I'm looking at.
Good point. Moni.
I'll agree with you, Jess. I'm going to be watching Ferrari, mostly because I want to see how they are able to kind of recover in the constructors and maybe, I guess, lessen that gap that Red Bull has in front of them. So I'll also be watching Ferrari.
Nick, who do you want to see?
I'm going to go with Red Bull, only because I know last race Checo DNF'd. He had the reliability issues with his car. So I'm looking to see if, he'll be able to bounce back and get back into that, top 4 and get into a possible podium position, and see if their reliability issues are fixed.
Yeah, I think that it makes sense to watch all of those. McLaren, papaya power. Come on, figure it out. Do something right.
I mean,
just get some points. Come on.
Well, I mean, I think
get both cars to get some points.
This is not McLaren of 20 years ago, and we all know this, right? I think the expectation is they open up a gap between 4th and 5th in terms of teams, and they're not doing that. And I think that's where the disappointment is. I don't think anyone expects them to compete with the top 3.
Right.
No.
We'll get into a couple of some news and notes. Well, actually, you know what? Before we get to that, which is very important, I think I want to talk about speaking of Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull, some of the upgrades that they are bringing. Let's start with Mercedes first. Look, Mercedes is obviously, I don't know if they're a contender for the constructors. They have been surprisingly, I think, based off of what we thought was going to happen after we saw that they're really not that, they don't have the pace. We saw that Russell has been able to, stay in the top 5 for, it seems like, I think it's every single race so far. So he's been able to keep them afloat while Hamilton's had his issues with his car. They're bringing some upgrades. They are still competitive per se. They're still behind Red Bull and Ferrari by a pretty decent margin. However, they're bringing some upgrades. They've Hamilton looked really good a couple weeks ago. The pace was there in the car. What are we talking about when it comes to upgrades for the for Mercedes? What can we see? What do we expect to see from them this weekend? I guess we'll start with you, Vish, on that.
Yeah, so they in Canada they took a step towards addressing the porpoising.
Right.
In the past, when the porpoising has gone away, they've actually gone slower because the way they've done it is taking downforce out of the car. Now, we talked a lot about how this is a technical track and high downforce, so we'll see if they can get it under control. So that's kind of the goal for them, is taking that next step in terms of getting that balance right. A lot of it has been, just can't get the car set up right. It's been a lot of mismatching, and apparently Hamilton's been taking more risks with his setup, which is kind of why he's been all over the place performance-wise. But one thing they have done is they've had ultimate reliability. Both cars have finished every race.
Yep.
And that's why they're kind of clinging on to the back of the constructor's title race just by finishing. And so one of the reasons Russell is finishing the top 5 in every race is because, I mean, if you think about it, they are the 3rd best team, so one of their 2 drivers should finish at least 5th. And then you get DNFs, exploding engines, whatever, from Red Bull and Ferrari, and then it's not actually that hard to finish in the top 5. So what they're trying to do is, not find themselves up there, but actually do it on pace. Like, it doesn't matter if the Ferraris and the Red Bulls finish, and that this is designed to kind of close that gap. Dubious whether it's actually going to, but it is just more upgrades to try and address the porpoising without taking downforce out of the car.
So basically what they're trying to do is find a happy medium, right? Like you said, of how to address the porpoising, not take too much downforce out where it's just going to completely, defeat the purpose of them, being competitive at all, period. It's finding that happy medium when it comes to those things, right?
Yep, absolutely. And that's what all the cars are about, balance. For Mercedes, just an extreme case of when they try to get a little bit more downforce, it turns into a jack in the box. So
yeah. Now on the other hand, while Ferrari does actually have some issues with porpoising, because they do run really low to the ground, right? They're a high downforce, I guess type of setup that they have. Their biggest thing has been their reliability with their new power unit, their new engine. Looks like they're actually going to bring some upgrades to the engine. However, it looks like it's more of an electrical upgrade, right? That's really the only area where the improvements can still be made under the FIA regulations. Correct me if I'm not.
Yeah, that's correct. And they're basically it's almost like repairing the existing engine rather than swapping it out. So they can upgrade components within the engine, within the electrical specifically, which can help power and reliability without actually doing an engine swap.
Right.
Which is obviously, given where Leclerc is on his engines, that is
I
will say, by Sainz, basically opting out of several races early this year by going to the gravel trap very early, he's got plenty of engines left. So he is someone, I was half joking there, but he's someone they can actually push the envelope with.
Well, let me ask you this. Let me ask all of you this. I don't know. I wouldn't know. He can make some. I know this is funny. This is gonna be a stupid question, but can he be like, "Hey, listen, Charles, I know that you're actually, the number one driver here. I've got some leftover, and I've got an engine." He can't say, "Hey, I'm gonna give it to you."
No,
right?
it's allocated per driver.
So. I know it's a stupid question, but hey, listen, man.
But it does allow them to potentially, upgrade an engine.
Right.
Put it into Sainz's car, see that it works, and the next race try to reverse engineer some of the components into Leclerc's engine. Like, they do have room to play with there because they can swap Sainz's engine without getting penalties.
Gotcha. I'll bring this to all of you as well. Now the Red Bull, right? So Red Bull is planning on bringing some upgrades as well. What is it? Are they going to bring upgrades to help their reliability as well? Is this an engine upgrade, or is this a power unit upgrade? What is it that Red Bull's going to do here? I don't know if Vish, I guess you can kind of allude to this on Red Bull's behalf.
Yeah, well. these are more aero upgrades. They're not really the engine.
Okay.
But it is again just.
Well, they're going to have to fix. They got to fix their rear wing as well, right? Weren't they having issues with their rear wing?
Yeah, they've had well-documented DRS issues. This is more about airflow though, and the floor of the engine that they're kind of working on here.
Gotcha. What was that, Nick?
Haven't had to tape their rear wing together like AlphaTauri has, but they have had some issues.
Right. Okay. That's really it for that. I think this is what I really wanted to kind of get into.
Yeah, I will just say, just on the Red Bull upgrades, they're in front right now, so they're just trying to take these minimal steps to just keep that lead. They're not really trying. I think Mercedes is obviously going to take more risks because they got to make a step. Status quo works fine for Red Bull,
right? Mm-hmm. And I think Ferrari needs to take a little bit of a risk because they are within striking distance if they can stay reliable and they can win a couple races here. So that's going to be important for them as well. Kind of shifting to some different news here. Look, the world that we live in right now, at some point, man, people got to figure it out, right? Like, I just don't understand how. And I understand there's an art. I guess what's the word that Lewis Hamilton was using? Archaic mindsets. There was apparently, allegedly, there was a racist remark by Nelson Piquet, who is a triple champion Brazilian driver. Apparently, he mentioned something on Twitter. I'm not on Twitter, excuse me, on social media. I'm not sure where. That kind of triggered a little bit of a reaction from everyone. I don't know exactly what was said, but and I know a lot of the excuses are going to be, well, PK is an older man, and this is a racial slur in Portuguese. And by the way, he was using it referring to Lewis Hamilton. I guess regarding, it looks here, regarding the British Grand Prix crash with Max Verstappen, came out now. And so Lewis is calling for a little bit of a change when it comes to, and look, he's a champion for change for all things. He's a champion for kind of progressing, moving forward, changing the way that things are done, not only in the sport but just in society as a whole. How do you guys take the whole situation that happened? PK, does apologize, says it wasn't meant in a racial way, so on and so forth. How do you guys take that? We'll start with you, Moni. How do you take the whole situation that happened with PK and Hamilton? Is it something that can be forgivable, and maybe it was taken out of context, or is this something where you got to be better than that? You got to know what the hell you're talking about, what you're saying.
So I'm a firm believer that we are in the 21st century. And because we are in the 21st century, I think there's been enough time for us to learn that sometimes if literally you got to think twice about what you're going to say, then you think twice about what you're going to say. I get it. We all get mad at some point or whatever. But the problem is that people grow too complacent with their feelings, how they want to express feelings. Or what they're thinking, to a point that there's no filter. It becomes offensive, and there's just no point. And we're too late in the game to not be aware of that as a society. Like this is literally a societal problem, and it's too late in the game not to realize it. So, as you say, yeah, whatever people say that Piquet, he's an older man. He has very interesting. How do you say that?
This is an international sport, Moni. You can say something in Spanish if you want.
Thank you. Good. Okay, thank you. Se alinea con cosas muy particulares. Like he has very particular ways of acting, very particular ways of socializing, and his circle in Brazil is very particular. And now this turns into a whole political argument that I'm not going to touch base on, but I just think that it's the 21st century, and that Lewis Hamilton has been nothing but a beacon for Formula One as a whole, and that he doesn't deserve any type of attack, whether physical or emotional or verbal or whatever the case may be, but neither does anyone else. So this is more of a societal problem, and as long as the important factors don't become complacent, like F1 or the FIA or the teams, then I guess taking baby steps something that we're late to. Sure, if you want to say it's forgivable, fine, whatever. But damn well what you said, So,
yeah.
And so first of all, just to be blunt about it, he is a racist. This is not the first time Moni was kind of tap dancing around his social circles. Like, this is who he is, but he's a 3-time champion, which is why it carries weight. And it does show a lot of how the F1 world views people of color, period. And this is still a problem, and Lewis Hamilton is the first prominent black driver, period. The fact that he's the greatest driver of all time just shouldn't obfuscate that, right? I mean, it is a sport that I remember when I started following it, there were no black drivers, and everyone's like, well, because it was definitely, there was racism towards that, the concept of even having a black driver. So I think for a lot of people, Lewis Hamilton has normalized the idea of a black driver. This is very common thought process, and obviously they banned him from the paddock and all of that. But this work doesn't end. Like after Hamilton, who's the next one, right? Yeah. And you don't really see it coming. And frankly, I think there's a lot of people in Formula One that are okay with that. And that is, like Moni said, you can't get complacent with this stuff. And like I said, when I started watching Formula One, there were no black drivers, and to see Lewis Hamilton come in as a rookie and start winning races and almost win the championship as a rookie, to me was like this enlightening moment. And I've also gotten used to having him there. And you know what? He's not always going to be there. And the fact that he still has to deal with this as the greatest driver in Formula One history is insane. What is going to happen when the mediocre F1 driver shows up? He's going to get thrown out of the sport after like 2 races, right? I mean, this is not acceptable, and I'm glad he went after it. And why are the PKs still around? I mean, his son came in and crashed on purpose and like caused a whole mess too. Like, they just all need to go away right now. Yeah, Jazz needs to unmute.
Hashtag go away.
You read that. You read that. And all the PKs go away. Nick, real quick before we move on, go ahead, man.
I mean, honestly, I'm just tired of, like they both said, it's the 21st century, man. People need to evolve as human beings and realize that change is coming, whether you like it or not. And, for Lewis Hamilton, was always been, a beacon for change and wanting to, end racism. And he always speaks out on, injustices. I think I've always commended him for that. And the fact that he still, even after, a 3-time champion basically came at him again, he still stays above the fray and handles it with grace. Like, what else do you want this guy to do in order to gain your respect? I just don't get it.
Look, real quick before we finish, I'll finish off by saying the problem is that people around the world, and not just when it comes to sports, not just when it comes to to athletes, have a really, really strong issue and are afraid of change, right? So you get a lot of people that are afraid of change, and so once they realize change is coming and it's inevitable and there's nothing that they can do about it, then a lot of them revert to this sort of behavior and their true colors come out, right? So you get a lot of people that don't want change and want to backlash and talk bad about change, and the true colors come out. And we need to as a society somehow not give those type of people a platform, right? Unfortunately, it is what it is, and there's a majority, as Tappy mentioned on the chat, there's a majority of people that are like that, right? And when something doesn't go their way, or when they're not in agreement with something that's going on in a sport where they were at the pinnacle of it at one point, and they think that they have a voice, and they're gonna spat off and say something like this, whatever it was that was said, it's unacceptable, and those type of people should not have a voice anymore. So I think this is what I think we should do. We should start a movement with hashtag get rid of the PKs. No more hashtag.
Nelson Jr. has been taken care of a while back after he turned state's evidence on Fernando Alonso and Renault. So he's in witness protection. But
so it's hashtag no more PKs. All right.
No more PKs. I will say it was encouraging to see a lot of the other F1 legends come out and side with Hamilton and be like, no, get this dude out.
And rightfully so. Rightfully so.
I know Damon Hill in particular is very vocal there, so that was good to see.
We can't stand silent. We need to communicate, educate, zero tolerance. 100%, Jack.
Yep.
We're with you on that. We're definitely with you on that. Let's kind of turn it over to a little bit of a lighter note. And you know what? Let's throw some shade at the people over in Silverstone.
I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. I
Let's
knew
throw
it.
some shade at these punks over there in England or London or wherever the hell they are. Let's throw some shade at them. Here's the headline. Silverstone wants festival style F1 event like Miami and Vegas. The Silverstone bosses will target high profile music acts and sustainability agenda to ensure the British Grand Prix keeps pace with Miami and Las Vegas Formula One races. Here's what I have to say to the British Grand Prix and the Silverstone bosses. Okay? All right?
So
that's what I have.
I'll also just say, it says Vegas and Miami. Vegas ain't had a race yet, so they really just mean they're copying Miami, as is what people normally do.
Right.
You criticize us because you couldn't keep up with us. Now you want to be us. It's standard Miami hating procedure there.
Typical. It always happens.
But we talked about that at the time, like how they were all being idiots because they do this like circus act everywhere.
Right.
And they realize they need to do it to maintain interest in their race. And so now they're copying it after all of that, talking down to us. Look at them.
I mean, to be frank, I honestly didn't catch me by surprise whatsoever. Because if you think about it, the US is literally, if there's a sport event in the United States, it will be grand. It will be spectacular, regardless of what that event is, especially if it's a bigger and it's a big deal. So I would say 8 out of 10 times, such a sporting event in the US will be logistically speaking and culturally speaking a success. And I think that's the case of the Miami Grand Prix. But now, I guess you could kind of backfiring for the US, because now I can't help but remember that episode for the Miami Grand Prix that we did. And we kind of just let it all out. But I can't help but think about the fact that we're just giving them more reasons to hate us, which is okay. I don't mind that.
Yeah, but now they want to be us. Now they want to be us.
Exactly. Like, you can keep hating, you can keep, talking smack, but look at your boss, babe. Look what your bosses are doing, So I don't know what to tell you.
So listen to this. Listen to this, and Vish, I think you'll get all of you will get a kick out of this backhanded compliment. How do we do that? This is a quote from I believe it's from the bosses. It says, quote, "How do we do that in our own way without becoming some homogenized American-based product, but we keep the unique identity of the British Grand Prix?" The answer is we make it more of a British summer festival. You're going to see a big upscale in the quality of music acts over the next few years. So if that, I mean,
when I think Miami, the first word that springs to mind is homogenized. There is nothing more homogenized than what the hell are you talking about?
I mean, what the hell are we? If that's not a backhanded compliment.
We'll have a queen.
We want to do something like that, but not be Miami.
We don't want to be homogenized.
We don't want to be
Miami.
homogenized like a Miami, an American-based product, but we still want to do exactly what Miami did. Like, come on.
The famous homogenous society in Miami.
look what Jack wrote. They're gonna combine a medieval festival with F1.
I mean, we can open a medieval times there if it helps.
Yeah, we could. The haters could hate it. I mean,
thoughts fair over to them. How about that?
Oh man. Unbelievable. It's gonna be interesting to see what they do with that. I'm all for it because, of course, we have it down here. So I'm not gonna hate if they do some sort of crazy extravaganza. Now
it's the hypocrisy.
It is.
They criticize us for something that everyone does, and now they have to do it to keep up, and it's just it's just perfect.
It is. It really is.
Jack, they already do that in their cars, but yeah, doing it off track would be nice.
Jack says Latifi and Stroll are going to partake in jousting. Oh, Jack, I love you, man. You're the man. All right, so let's get down to the best part of the show. We always leave the best for last. It's the PCP. And I'm not talking about drugs. It's the Pit Crew predictions, baby.
All right, we are a Miami-based podcast. You definitely
Right.
need to be specific about that.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. My bad. It's the Pit Crew predictions. This one should be interesting. Let's start with Moni. Moni, what do you got for us? Give us your top 3 and your surprise.
Okay,
And by the way, Jack, Fernando, anybody in the chat, go ahead and give us your predictions.
I actually didn't think about my surprise. Okay, I'm gonna let Ferrari have a good weekend.
Oh, thanks.
With a 1-2 situation, type of thing, type. I'm gonna go with Leclerc P1, Sainz P2,
Okay.
and Max P3.
All right. Okay.
I didn't think about my surprise. I'm sorry. Can you guys go around and I can't think about it because I actually didn't think. Anything I said at this point, I'm gonna be inventando.
Yeah, go ahead. We can just talk about Manny, as he says, working, so he's in the background, but he did go ahead and put his, so we can just discuss Manny's.
I got his.
Leclerc Hamilton Sainz prediction. Got Hamilton in P2.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't think you need to do a surprise, Manny, because that will probably do it.
That's a surprise, but Manny, we'll take your surprise too. So let us know in the chat back there. Vish, what do you got?
All right, so this doesn't qualify as a surprise, but it will be a first time. I'm gonna go with Sainz finally winning a race.
All right.
I'm gonna go Sainz, Verstappen, and Leclerc, because if Leclerc is right behind Sainz, they're gonna make him move out of the way. So I couldn't put Leclerc in second. So you gotta have wow, Zhao top 5. There's
Okay.
a big one, maybe.
I like
that. So I need Max in between Sainz and Leclerc, otherwise that'll never happen. And then for surprise, I'll go with George Russell DNF.
Ooh!
Which I will say is not. I know I've been accused in the past. This is not a George Russell hater. I was looking for a surprise, and I mentioned earlier as I was looking, I was like, Mercedes has not had an engine failure, really. So I think it's not his fault. The engine's going to go.
They're due for one.
Could be Hamilton too. I just flip a coin.
Right.
So one of their engines has to blow up.
Nick, what do you got, man?
Let's see. I'll go Max, Sainz, and Leclerc.
All right.
But I'll say that Leclerc isn't close enough to Sainz to basically say give him the spot and overtake him, and that's why he finishes above him.
Okay. What's your surprise?
Surprise! I'll go with my hometown team, and I'll say Lando finishes in the top 5.
All right. Lando top 5. Okay. Moni, are you ready for your surprise?
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm surprises with McLaren, pero now with Lando. I'm going to Ricardo top 7.
Ricardo top 7.
You and your top 7s.
Everybody bringing the surprises strong today.
I know,
man.
baby.
McLaren top 7 is valid.
Yeah.
When you said like Sainz top 7, all right, he's in the fastest car. That's not. But McLaren, like, if everyone finished in order, should be around 7, 8, and Ricardo's been behind Norris, so really you'd expect him to be about 8. So top 7 works.
Yeah, I like it. I'm gonna go Leclerc gets a win finally again. I'm gonna go Leclerc, Max, and Carlito. I'm gonna go Carlito and P3. Okay, Carlito and P3. And hey, listen, I talked them up. God, I'm so afraid of doing this. This is definitely gonna be a surprise, but I'm gonna go Vettel in the top 5. I'll go Vettel top 5. That's a big surprise, right?
Yeah.
That's like a huge surprise.
Yes, that's a big one. You're pushing the chips in.
I'm all in on Vettel. I've tried to get him as a surprise. I think it's like my 3rd time. I mean, he's bound to do something nice with Aston Martin, right? They are Red Bull, right?
So based on our picks, no one had any faith in Checo this week.
I think he finishes 4th, right? I think he's right there.
I mean, we had all 5 of us picked, and no one mentioned him, which is kind of weird.
I know.
One of the top cars.
Because his chances are he's going to be in the podium.
Got 6.
I got him 4th. I think he finishes right there. I think this is a Red Bull Ferrari race all the way through. So
Yeah,
I just think
Checo.
Vettel.
That's what I'm saying. It was like,
Yeah, I
he's
think
been right on
Vettel.
there.
I think Vettel he's going to perform well in practice and in qualifying. If the weather's wet, I think he has a better shot. But the only way he gets a top 5 finish is if there's like, red flags galore or some shit, and he ends up figuring out a way to get up there. But stranger things have happened, so I'm gonna do it again, and I'm okay with losing that one, so that's fine. All right, I think we got it all there. I think we got it all set up. I even took down Fernie's. Jack never gave me his, so I don't appreciate that, Jack. But that's okay. Anyways, you can send us a tweet.
Look, no one
tag us on Twitter.
No one picked it, but we're still holding out. Look, there's 12 races left in Latifi's career. He's got to run into Stroll at some point. Come on, it's got to happen.
Right. Or
they're gonna
just
joust.
for the fun of it. I mean, come on, he's got to entertain us. He's putzing around 10 seconds behind the rest of the field in last place, which is how he's not crashing now. But he's got to run into Stroll.
That's true.
I do think Canada will throw a parade if he gets a point somehow.
Oh, ain't that the truth? Ain't that the truth? Anyways, guys, awesome show as always. You guys are great. Make sure you guys keep it locked on Sunday after the race for our post-race show, as we'll get on for a few minutes and discuss the debauchery and the surprises or not. So we'll be pretty excited to bring that to you after Silverstone. So it'll be probably around 12:30 or so when we'll get on the air and talk a little bit about the British Grand Prix. Vish, Moni, Nick, Manny on the ones and twos. You guys have been great. Make sure you catch us every Wednesday night at 9:30 here on the 5 Reasons Sports YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter at F1_5 Reasons. And make sure you guys keep it locked and check us out on all things F1 during the week and leading up into FP1 all the way through to the race on Sunday morning. And, of course, after that, in the post-race show. Make sure you keep it locked here on Hitting the Apex. Again, thank you so much for Vish, Moni, Nick, Manny. I'm Jazz. This is Hitting the Apex. We'll see you guys next Wednesday at 9:30. Take it easy.